I didn't know how I'd feel right at this time today because, like all the planners, we've been so busy, and the presenters too, I'm sure, but so busy that I didn't really get in touch with what I was going to feel, and I didn't know. But I must say that I feel really pumped up right now. And first of all, there's so many of you, and I just feel very grateful. And it's a tribute to each, the strength and character of each of you in these trying times to show up and participate. So thank you. And I want to say that I'm not as good at Tom as Tom is in terms of he probably has a split screen. I don't have a split screen. I memorized it, not memorized, but I prepared my speech here, so to speak. But bear with me. But I just want to say on behalf of all the planners, we're very happy to have you here. And this we're really hoping that you'll take away, gain some skills, strengths, strategies, and that sort of thing to deal with the amount of injustice in our society to stay the minimum, and to find out, get some more confidence and hope. Um, and that stuff is fleeting, I understand. With every day that we get snowballed with so much going on. But again, thank you for being here. This is going to be an interactive training today, 2 hour training, and have very skilled, two very skilled and experienced presenters in nonviolence, with and the following that though. There'll be also, as we typically, not typically, but routinely have some young Mike Yo Peace Fellows, trainers in nonviolence, that are being trained in nonviolence. And some of them will be here to either hear in live or the video, they'll be joining us via the video. And there's several of those. So this has always been a kind of one of the highlights of these conferences. I've found is that they have so much commitment and determination to change the world and that kind of thing. And they each have social projects that they deal with, and they'll be talking about those. There'll also be short group discussions during the training, and and there'll be probably 2 or 3 of those. And so again, by the way, following a formal conference, we typically, well, we've had about a 45 minute informal discussion, which is it's not part of the conference per se, but many of you have found that very enjoyable. So all of you are welcome to stay for that. That'll stay, like I say, it'll be right around the end of we'll have a very short break after the formal discussion, and then go into that. So again, thank you for being here. And I just, we hope you find this a very rich and rewarding experience, and one you can draw upon in the trying times ahead. But I must say again, there's a lot of Bruce Putnam mentioned a book, The Uprising, or something like that, an uprising. And I feel like in some ways in the last 6 years, it's very much an uprising. So thank you. At this point, I want to introduce Regan, who's going to give us a short land acknowledgement. Regan?
Thank you, David.
I'll do that.
We live and work on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples who lived here in harmony with the land and the water for so many generations before Europeans came to this place, and as they live here still. We seek to nurture the relationship between Coast Salish and non-Indigenous neighbors, and to undertake our shared responsibilities for this place where we presently live together. We understand that a land acknowledgement should not be an obligatory box to be checked when shared publicly, but rather one essential step on a long journey of learning right relations and practicing genuine allyship with the first peoples of this land who were forcibly displaced from their ancestral lands and prevented from practicing their traditional cultures. We are mindful that some indigenous organizations, such as the Native Governance Center at nativegov.org, are encouraging non-indigenous groups engaged in writing land acknowledgments these days to also create an action plan that outlines the concrete and measurable steps they will take to support indigenous communities into the future. Without some sort of action plan, the Native Governance Center cautions, a land acknowledgement can come across as simply another form of optical allyship. Finally, it is important that we are also mindful of the ongoing displacement today, with U.S. complicity, of long-established people from their ancestral lands by contemporary settler movements in such areas as the Brazilian Amazon basin and Palestinian lands in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. Thank you for gathering with us today for this fall conference.
Thank you, Regan. Appreciate it. I want now to introduce our two trainers, Mary Lou Finley and Pam Smith. We're very grateful to have them here today. And they've been working together as nonviolent together and individually also as nonviolent trainers for many, many years. And they were both co-editors. Or actually, they started in Chicago about nearly 10 years ago, working together, as I understand it. And they've also been co-editors of the book, The Chicago Freedom Movement, Martin Luther King Jr. and Civil Rights Activism in the North, which came out in 2016. And they're both certified nonviolence trainers. Mary Lou began her work actually back in the, I think it was about the mid-60s, working on Martin Luther King's staff in Chicago. And she's now a retired professor from Antioch University in Seattle and a co-director of the Mike Yale Peace Fellow program I mentioned earlier. And she's been working with the program since that MYPF program, since that program began. She's also been involved in many social justice movements and is a co-author of the book Doing Democracy, the MAP model for organizing social movements. And Pam Smith is a native Chicagoan, is an educator, public historian, genealogist, and Kingian nonviolent trainer, currently living in Portland, Oregon. Early in her career, Pam team conducted the feasibility study that set the stage for the Chicago Freedom School, which is now in its 17th year. And Pam served as communications director for Reverend Jesse Jackson in his 1988 presidential bid. Boy, that I can remember that like yesterday in terms of Jesse Jackson thing. I remember watching him on TV. So, and she also worked with Barack Obama in his primary campaign for the U.S. Senate. She's producer of the forthcoming documentary Current, A Descendant's Journey for Truth. So welcome, Mary Lou and Pam. It's wonderful to have you here. Go for it.
Thank you so much, David. We're excited to be here this morning. I want to say that Pam is having some technical problems with her internet service at her home where she's living. And so I think she's in the process of moving she may be on her phone instead of on on Zoom as in the same way that she had anticipated. So, but we're carrying on. We'll be fine. So welcome everybody. We're just glad to see you all. And we hope to have some kind of conversations as a group together today. We're really looking forward to that. I think that we will go forward with the review of the agenda for today. Tom, can you help us with that? Tom is going to, we have some slides that we'll be working from, then Tom is going to be helping us with. So, what
Sorry,
that
okay, now I'm, there we
okay.
go.
All right. All right. What that means is that we can't see everybody at the same time, unfortunately. So, but we'll keep trying to see you as best we can. Okay. So, um, all right. This is our topic for today. Nonviolence, key strategies for a time of rising authoritarianism. Thank you. Okay, next slide. There we are, Pam and I. Okay, David gave us a great introduction. Okay, here's our agenda for today. So we're just starting with the welcome. We're going to have a conversation on what have you seen happening in your communities, and then we're going to look at where is today's movement, looking at it from the framework of the 8 stages of a social movement. Then we're going to look quickly at the principles of nonviolence, since nonviolence is the basis of all the work that we do. The aggression conciliation is a part of the nonviolence training that we do. Um, then we have Stacey Abrams on a video talking about the 10 steps to autocracy. So we have a little bit of a sense of where we are as a culture and as a country at this point. And then we're looking at a whole series of strategies, building the movement, using the spectrum of allies, pillars of support, why non-cooperation, many examples of non-cooperation, and preparing for what we need to do now. So that's a quick overview of the agenda. You give you a little bit of sense of where we're headed today. Thank you very much. Um, okay, so thank you. So what we're going to do now, we're going to just have a little chance for you to talk to each other, and we're going to have this is the question we're looking at. What do you see happening in this movement for change? We're going to do a kind of a what have you seen going on in the movement and also just in the community in a sense? It's what's happening. Kind of give us a sense of where our collective starting point is. So Tom is going to put us into breakout groups for about 5 minutes. And when we come back, we will have some sharing from the groups. We won't be able to get everything, but we want to hear what you're seeing as what's happening in the community. This is kind of our starting place today. Okay, Tom, are you ready to put people into breakout groups, sir?
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
ready. So
So in some
we have,
groups will have facilitators. Some we'll just have to self-facilitate. But what we want to do is to hear from everybody and just what have you seen happening in the community, in your community or in the whole larger community? Okay. Um, okay.
so after 5 minutes, you'll see a 15-second countdown, and it should automatically bring you back here to the main room.
Okay. And
Okay,
then we'll
here
be
we go.
sharing. Then we'll be sharing in the main room a bit about what you saw. Okay, we're back. Um, okay, let's just hear from a few people. Sort of what it come let kind of a group brainstorm here. Kind of what do you see happening in your community? And raise your hand or put something in the chat if you like. Um, let's just hear back from a few groups. Uh, Jean, I see your face on my screen. So what do you want to start?
Well, not sure which Jean, but I had to
Oh,
leave the meeting for a couple minutes to let a latecomer in. So I wasn't at the breakout very
okay.
long.
So I'll be the dean. Our
Okay.
group was a lot of us were talking about the people coming for No King's Day protests, and our group was pretty much spread out through Western Washington, and it seemed like that was the common theme was seeing people come who had not been protesting before, but then also we started to get into um, what more people can do in terms of support for immigrants and people of color and people who are afraid to speak out at this time.
Thank you, Jean. That was great. John Otto has his hand up.
Yeah, the long term and short term problems I see is that we're stuck as we human beings always get stuck at various stages of our development. We've come from clans to tribes to confederation of tribes to kingdoms to nations, and we're at a stage now where we're stuck. We need to move on to federations, like it's begun in Europe, but we Americans want to go back. Somehow we're more comfortable going back than moving forward. And that's the long-term problem I see. And the immediate problem is that we aren't very good at talking to one another when we realize that we disagree. In my experience, the moment I encounter someone I sense has basic different values than I do, our tendency is to avoid that area of discussion or to break off the relationship, which means we all don't learn things from one another that we need to know.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you. Who else? And once it can say what was going on in your group, what kind of things did people bring up? Um, Hands? Anybody? Um, Bruce.
In our small group, there was an expression of a feeling of fear and dread, and then the counterweight was a perception that there are many, many more people becoming active, that the coalition against Trump is broadening and widening, and that there are signs that the coalition that has given Trump power is fracturing and is changing. So, in short, I think we might summarize that we are at a watershed moment where the fear is giving way to not only expressions of opinion of opposition to Trump, which the voting, of course, showed in the election 2 weeks ago, but also the numbers of people that are becoming active, that are moving with their feet and moving with their bodies to begin to non-cooperate in ways that are actually fracturing the power that has held Trump together.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. We've got Heather and two other people have their hands up. So we'll do that and then we're going to move on. Heather?
Yes. I'm in Olympia, and we have rapid response teams that go to wherever the ICE sightings are. And we also have an accompaniment group that accompanies people to the court hearings in Tacoma or Seattle. And there's a new legal group that is working with people in detention that gives free or low cost legal help. So we've got a pretty robust community here, but most of the ICE detention or the ICE taking people has been in Shelton, which is about 30 minutes from where we are. We've also helped with the food bank and delivering food to people who don't want to come out of their houses for fear of ICE.
Wow, that's very powerful. That's a very organized community. That's exciting. Okay, let's see. Who's there? I'm seeing another raised hand.
I see Hans.
Hans.
Who is it? Hans?
Hans.
Yep.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for putting this conference on. Yeah, I am a Quaker, the only Quaker in St. George, a city of about 100,000 people in southern Utah. I was in Seattle for the King's March. Lots going on there. I was in Portland the following week and felt the anguish of the entire Quaker community of about 75. I come back down here and talking to my colleagues in Unitarian Universalist, in Baha'i, in Centers for Spiritual Living and other similar groups, I find very little is going on. The reason I've joined this conference today is because I'm pondering deeply how ethical it is, or whether there's even an ethical imperative to do something unlawful to deal with what I consider unlawful laws. And I'm looking for ideas to temper my enthusiasm for doing something that I might regret at some later stage. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Hans. That is a very, we understand that's a challenging situation that you're in. Thank you for sharing it. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. So thank you. It's just nice to hear what people are seeing in their communities and where we are. We're going to move ahead, and I think we're ready to go back to the slides, Tom. Okay, so what I want to do as we start out here is to take a quick look at the old movement action plan in its 8 stages for social movements. This has been around for a long time. You longtime activists may have heard a lot about it, and you may have seen it in other contexts. But I thought it was a useful way to look at sort of what's happening right now as a starting point. So we're going to go through a couple of quick things with this. Even though it's been around a long time, it's still being used by activists today. Okay, next slide. This is one of the diagrams that we like to use with the map model. And I think that I'm just curious how this fits what we've been seeing. What you can see over here on number 1, we have protests and social movements who make protest signs and talk to the power holders. But we can see there's a second thing that's going on when there's a social movement, that it alerts, educates, inspires, and involves the general public. And now we've got more power moving toward the power holders. I'm just going to ask, can anybody see out of what we've been experiencing and noticing in our communities how this has worked? Can you see this having happened? Somebody just speak out.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us how that's happened? Just one thing.
Oh, this is David. I was saying in the group I was in that I've seen a lot of stuff for indivisible all over the nation, and here in Seattle and Tacoma is much more active, much more than it was before.
Yeah.
But
So
and also toward both the power holders and also the general public.
So part of what we're doing out there with those picket signs is and being a place that other people can join. Okay, next slide. This is an overview of the 8 stages of the movements, and I'm not going to go through all this in detail today, but what I want to focus on is if you can look up in the upper right-hand corner, there says "for movement takeoff," and I'm going to say that's where we are. So we're going to focus on stages 4, 5, and 6 to get a little bit of sense of where we are and what we have to watch out for and what's the next thing to do. Okay, next slide. In stage 4, I would like somebody to read this for me. Let's see. Louise, can you read it?
Sorry, I couldn't find my
Okay.
unmute button.
Okay.
So movement takeoff, trigger an event that sparks public wake up, dramatic nonviolent actions, and repeated across the country.
Okay. Can you think of anything we've been doing, you or somebody else, that fits into this model?
Well, I'd like to think that the No Kings was waking up some people, but I'm not sure about that.
Well, I think we could say it woke up some people, and even the second, it woke up more people between. Okay, Michael's got something to say.
I think the opposition is creating trigger events when they've been brutalizing people, throwing them down, illegally arresting them, holding them against judicial rulings. That's making people realize that the authoritarian government is out of control and that we, the people, have to assert ourselves.
Thank you, Michael. I think that's a great example. Yes. Anybody else see other trigger events happening that have upset people? It's kind of an odd metaphor, but it's one that's stuck. So we're Catherine.
I feel like there are multiple triggers happening and different kinds of movements. I mean, there are things happening on the environmental front, with climate change. There are things happening on gender justice things with reproductive rights being threatened, and there are things being happened on the immigration front and labor front. So I feel like there's multiple triggers happening right now, and basic democracy with like gerrymandering.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we've got Mary, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Mary Hansen.
Yeah, I would just say that the fact that there were over 7 million people out for the last No King's Day and no violence, the fact that there was no violence is really huge, because usually we get all caught up in dealing with the mess of violence when it's that many. And so we managed to be able to keep moving forward, and not get not have to deal with a lot of issues, dealing with the question of should these actions be violent or not. There just seems to be a huge consensus that these massive actions be nonviolent.
Yes, that's very exciting, Mary. Yes, I think you're right. Okay, Nan, and then we're going to move on.
Just the event of having the SNAP cut off, that affected millions, 42 million people in this country. That was
You're right.
Definitely a trigger.
Yes. We're not able to hear you very well, Nan, but I did hear the SNAP cutoff was a huge trigger event. Okay, next stage. Next slide. Okay. Can somebody, Bruce, you read this one for me.
Stage 5, perception of failure, at least by some activists, which includes discouragement, unsure what to do next when things don't change right away. This is a feeling of failure, a feeling of, oh, we had a big mass movement, but things are not that dramatically different. What to do? Help activists move on to stage 6, that there is an anticipated letdown after a big surge in stage 4. Is that right?
Thanks a lot, Bruce. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. Has anybody run into this in your community, or you find any people going around saying, well, we had all these big marches, but now what?
Yeah.
Somebody said yes.
Yes.
Okay. So our job as activists is to help people realize that we don't usually win when we're having a big protest like this at stage 4, the wake-up call. That's not the moment we usually win, and sometimes people think that's going to happen. Susan Smith has a hand up.
Yes, with stage 5, it makes me think of the presidential elections, and we almost could have had the first Black female president, but we didn't. For one great reason was she pandered to conservative policies, in particular, not changing her tone on the genocide and the U.S. complicity of the genocide. And so that was a big upset because then we got a fascist in power. But even with the No Kings rally, which is to reclaim the Democratic Party in government, we need to look at how the Democratic party is failing in certain regards. So this requires insight. And I think that's the moment where we are now, which is one reason why Mamdani won in New York City and other places. We're seeing a rise of people in government willing to speak truth to power.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that. Let's move. I'm going to move on. I'm sorry. I'm going to move on to the next one so we can keep going through this. And I know your hand is up, Karen, so maybe we can talk about it this time. Okay. Can somebody read this one to me? Michael, are you there?
Yes. Stage 6, building majority public opinion. Grow the movement. Welcome new converts to the movement and make unlikely alliances, even some power holders. Vision. Develop the movement's vision for the future. Protest as needed when new trigger events happen. Be creative. Yay, frogs. Non-cooperation strategies.
Okay, thank you.
Withhold support.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So this is where we're headed into. We've done the big protests. We may still do some more of them, but the main things, these are the kinds of things we need to do now. Has anybody had any experience with new converts to the movement? Sometimes we have to reach out to people beyond our original circles. That's always kind of tricky. Bruce has got his hand up.
The most recent convert is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Not on all issues, but on a very critical issue, and with a swan song goodbye. If people haven't seen it, you should see it because it's quite remarkable. Almost everybody's shaking their head saying, "Who would have thought?" So these kinds of things are happening with more regularity and will happen with more regularity if the trend continues as we think it will with conversions.
Yes,
I
thank
see
you.
Karen S. with her hand up.
Dane Breslin? Comment?
Did you say my name, Mary Lou?
Yeah, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Yeah.
When I'm the pastor of a congregation in Wenatchee, Washington, and when we started getting very vocal about the genocide in Palestine, I had a lawyer in my congregation actually leave quite dramatically. And just a month ago, he came back and he said, I had a lot of learning and growing to do, and I realized I was completely wrong. Thank you for continuing to hold your stance on Palestine and forgive me. So I saw that as a major convert moment, so to speak.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, that's really important. And it's we have to be willing to welcome these people who weren't always with us. And sometimes that's hard for us. At least we're in a nonviolence community here, maybe less hard than some people would, but we may run into people for whom it's hard to welcome those people. And that's kind of part of our work. It's to know that's part of where we're at now. Karen.
Yeah. Karen S. still has a hand up. I don't know if she's had something to say or not yet.
Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary Lou. I think the comment started with stage 5 when I put my hand up and flows into stage 6. Because I think where I am observing and feeling is that we are struggling with what's our vision. Are we going to return to what we were like and quote unquote the Democratic Party? Or are we going to acknowledge that the party as we knew is dead? And are we going to acknowledge what do we want to be? And I see us struggling, both criticizing the Democrats that are elected officials in power. What the friggin' are they doing? And that's, you can tell my bias there. I was pleased yesterday when the state of Washington, both one of our senators, Patty Murray, and one of our reps, Pramila Jayapal, spoke out against Trump for his remarks against the 6 Democrats that had served in the military. And I noticed, they were women. and B, they were from the West Coast. I am seeing the East Coast, where I was born, be very silent when it comes to criticizing the power base. And part of my personal belief, and I'm seeing it in people in the movement, is that can we go back to this power, and what do we want? What are we going to go for? And I think the biggest trigger I am seeing that is finally hitting the everyday person that is so busy with life, they can't pay attention to all of this stuff, unlike some of us who aren't working full time anymore. The reality is that they are wondering what happened to the rule of law, because that was something that was totally foundational for our country, for doing business, for relationships, for everything. And I don't think the average person understood how important the rule of law was. And I think they're now saying, now what?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That was all very powerful. And I want to call attention to the vision part on stage 6 here that you were speaking to, that we do have to, by the time we got everything, the public woke up. Now we're saying what we want to say no to. Now we have to be really clear about what we want to say yes to. What is the and we're not all agreed on that, so we'll have debates, but we need to get going on it. That's part of the work of this time too. Um, okay, thank you all. Thank you so much. Let's look at the next slide very briefly. Success, we're not there yet, but what I'm realizing is we may be able to find success now in some small places like the city or the county or the state government. And I think this model was old and it doesn't necessarily speak to the authoritarianism. So we have to get into what we have to do to get to success around that. We'll do that a little bit later, but we're not going to talk about this one. I'm just going to say the main thing to notice here is that the takeoff is step 4 and the success is step 7. So you don't get the success immediately. And that's something for all of us to be clear about so that we can help other people understand that. Michael, you got something you wanted to say.
I think the issue that Karen brought up was about affordability.
Yeah.
Once could slash survivability. And already we're seeing that being embraced by some power holders, including the president, who talks about, yeah, we need more affordability. He doesn't go there the same way we would go there, but it's common now. And we have millions of people aware that the system is rigged against them, and they're wanting the system to be changed to be much more just and inclusive.
Wow, thank you. So we are making some progress on the vision part of it. Yes. Okay, Debbie, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I think a lot of people's frustration on our side with wanting things to change now and why can't we see success immediately is because on the other side with the administration, they had such a ramp up and did things so quickly that we perhaps think we should be able to do it on our side just as quickly and reverse what has been done.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Pam is back with us, and we're going to move on from this. But thank you for this conversation. This is a really good getting a feel for what people are seeing in the community and how it fits overall together in this movement that we're in the midst of right now. Okay, Pam, are you there?
I am. So I just wanted to say good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you, and I'm so sorry I'm having internet problems in our building, so I'm on the phone and not seeing your lovely faces, but we'll move along here. So the next part is we're going to move into, so now that Mary Lou has reviewed the 8 stages, Stacey Abrams has an excellent clip. Some of you may have seen it, where she talks about how we got here. So some people say that we're living with the threat of authoritarianism or autocracy, or we're already in it. Whichever view you have, she does a very good job of kind of laying out how we got here and where we are. So Tom, we can run that clip, and it starts at 2 minutes.
Question.
Tom.
Over the weekend, you went viral for laying out 10 steps to autocracy. Run us through those steps so we all know.
Okay, so this happens in every nation that has become an autocracy, having been a democracy. So whether we're talking about Brazil with Bolsonaro, or India, or Putin and Russia, the Philippines with Duterte. So start with winning an election. Usually the last one you're going to get to have for real. Number two, you have an expansion of executive power. The president decides he wants more than he's supposed to have. Number three, you start to make the Congress complicit. So you weaken them and you neutralize or neuter the judiciary. Like, oh, I don't know, the Supreme Court giving you unfettered power and saying we don't have the ability to stop things. Then you move on to firing all of the people who know how to make government work. So you gut the civil service. And you do that because you want to break democracy so people forget the stuff that used to get done. So you can't get your Social Security check. So the CDC doesn't know what diseases are anymore. Then you put in place these loyalists, people who are only responsive to you. You put them in charge of the FBI so they go after your enemies. You put them in charge of the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, so they can signal to their friends and tell them all about the evil plans that you have. Then you make certain that you break how we communicate. So you criticize the media and you create your own echo chamber of propaganda. You call it truth even though you know you're lying. Then you go to the next step, and I call that step 7. Because at step 7, you have to blame someone. You have to blame people for the broken government, for the broken promises. So you go after DEI. You go after the vulnerable, the dispossessed. You go after any community that doesn't look like what you think power should be. While you're doing that, you make certain that you, in step 8, you eliminate anybody who could help them. So you sue law firms that do pro bono cases. You go after philanthropies and accuse them of giving money to the wrong people. You go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get to step 9 and you start to encourage and incentivize private violence. You send the US Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Okay. Wow. Well,
And we can stop there. Thank you, Tom. Anyone have what jumped out here? Maybe we'll hear 1 or 2 comments. And Mary Lou, if you can see the hands, because I can't.
Okay. That's kind of a stunner, I find. So
yeah,
it's a little hard to have a reaction to it. But do you see anything? Do you see anything happening that fits what she's talking about? Or if you want to just, okay, John has his hand up.
I think she named it exactly. I don't know when this was recorded, but she knows what's going on. Very impressed.
Yes. And she's very good at summing it up in a capsule.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So that's where we are. And if we move on to the next slide, we wanted to just mention, I'm sure you guys are aware of the work of Erica Chenoweth, and this book in particular, Civil Resistance. But there's a lot of evidence. She's done a lot of studies to show the power of nonviolence around the world and the lasting effect of nonviolence. So just wanted to mention her as a reminder in all this. And now we'd like to move on to a discussion of the 6 principles. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we know this group, FOR, knows this material well. But we just wanted to say this is the grounding of our movement building efforts. We want to make sure that we stay in this. So we're just going to review these quickly. So if we could have 6 people, one person each read a principle, that would be wonderful. Who would like to read principle number 1?
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you.
1, nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people.
Okay, thank you. And if we could have people prepared to read each of the others as we continue. Principle number 2.
The beloved community is the framework for the future.
Thank you.
Attack forces of evil, not persons doing evil.
Okay.
Number 4, accept suffering without retaliation for the sake of the cause to achieve the goal.
Thank you. Next one.
Avoid internal violence of the spirit as well as external physical violence.
Okay. And the last one.
The universe is on the side of justice.
Yes, I like how you said that. So I'm sure all of these sound familiar to you. Just a few takeaways on this is this idea of courage, which right now we're all living in this environment where the idea is to create all of this fear that paralyzes everyone. And, you know, we've got to operate in the face of that fear. Really, when you think about it, can you have courage without fear? I mean, it's because of fear, you know, that you have to have courage to really stand up to it. And so that we're always in an active mode. It's you know, being an upstander and not a bystander. Also, making sure that when we think about the beloved community, like sometimes if we're not careful, we can think the people who agree with us are the people who should be in a beloved community, when in fact we hold space for people to change, for people to grow, for us to be able to persuade and win people over, for the beloved community, as Mary Lou always talks about, you know, to be this big tent. In terms of attacking the forces of evil and not persons doing evil, you know, when we work with kids, you know, we boil that down to attack the problems, not the people. You know, that's a quick way to. And even in this environment, when we're dealing with such a huge personality that is driving a lot of this, it's very tempting to focus on the personality. But we have to continue to focus on the systems and the injustices. And I know as an African American, when I think about my enslaved ancestors, a lot of this was happening before Trump. I mean, the country was founded as a slave society. So these problems have been here for a long time that need to be addressed. Principle 4 is talking about accepting suffering, but why? For the sake of the cause. You have a cause. You have a very clear goal to achieve the goal, and it's self-chosen suffering. You know, you're deciding to put your life, to put yourself on the line in whatever way feels right for you. But because there is a cause there. This fifth one, avoid internal violence of the spirit. This is really important because we have to be able to keep going. So we have to find ways to release the tensions that we have. And if you think back to the civil rights movement, there were, you know, they sang and there were mass meetings, so people weren't in isolation. You know, we have to look at ways to do that now. But when we think about internal violence of the spirit, that could be anything. It could be self-hatred. It could be internalized oppression. Anything that just is kind of harbored in your spirit, just working with others and finding ways to address that. And just making sure that the final one, that the way we conduct ourselves as we pursue and build the movement is in line with the ends that we want to see. You all know that this is a big thing that Dr. King talked about, that the means must be consistent with the ends. So that's just a quick little review. Are there one or two comments? Does any principle speak to you more than another one, and why? Is there a comment on these?
Hans had a comment in the chat. Maybe he could share.
Thank you.
I can read it. I'm fine suffering retaliation
Yes.
personally.
Sorry, here I am. I'm fine at my age, suffering any kind of retaliation. I don't mind being locked up, beaten, or whatever. But I am very concerned that by association, my family, especially my grandchildren, may have to suffer, and I don't wish that on them. So I'm in a bit of a bind here, what to do.
No, I thank you, Hans. I can really appreciate that. And that's, one of the steps. We're not going to have a lot of time today to talk about. These are the 6 principles of Kingian nonviolence and the 6 steps, which is the methodology. There's something called personal commitment, where people have to really think about their own personal situation, not just yourself, but like you're saying, the people all around you. So it's just, thinking hard about what are you able to do, while in your case, thinking about and trying to protect the people that you love. So I don't have a real answer to that, but it is a part of this process of just deeply thinking about what you are able to do and unable to do as well. Okay, if there aren't any other comments on the principles, we'll move on to aggression and conciliation, Mary Lou.
We did have one more person, John Otto.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not so much a comment on the principles as Stacey Abrams' comment. I think she left one thing out that we can see the Trump administration doing, and that has to do with the word again. He has actively appealed to a deeply embedded religious tradition that our conservative and fundamentalist Christians are involved in, and that's lifting up the value of individualism, which he has done very effectively. They see their value of autonomous individualism being threatened, and the threat they see is what they call communism, which is really a movement towards socialism, and that his support for avoiding going forward is affirming the backward motion of many people who want to maintain a religiosity that is centered upon autonomous individualism. And he's done that very well, I think. Whereas liberals, by and large, don't talk on the level of spirituality, and except in our churches. And we need to be able to talk to people on that level as well as the political level.
Thank you for that. That is an important point. So I appreciate you putting that on the table. Thank you. Okay, Mary Lou.
Okay, this is just one of the things we teach in the nonviolence workshops that can be helpful, and it really reflects one of the principles that Pam, that we were just talking about. So what we want to point out here is that oftentimes when we are in the midst of a lot of trouble, we tend to put our aggression toward people. And, we know it's really easy to get mad at the president because of something he's done, which upsets us. And what conciliation, as we call it, toward the condition. So if all of our energy is going toward upset toward the person who's personifying all of this, that is not the best way to go forward. So what we're looking for instead is to put our, quote, aggression toward the conditions and our conciliation toward the people. So part of what we're saying with that is we want not to focus our attention on the people or assume that many of the people that we're upset with could be won over. Now, I don't know if we can win over the president, but there's many other people in the ranks that can be won over, as we've seen with someone pointed out earlier about Marjorie Taylor Greene. So it's to be open to welcoming. Martin Luther King used to say, I don't have any enemies. I only have people who are not yet friends. And that's always challenging, but that's what we want to hold. And then to put our upset and our what's called here aggression toward the conditions. What are the underlying conditions that are dealing with this? What is allowing us to have the rule of law evaporate in many circumstances? What are the conditions that are going on that are a problem? So you want to go back to the 6 principles for a minute with a slide. This fits the same thing. It's very similar. Where attack forces of evil, not persons doing evil. Principle 3, or as Pam put it, as we teach it when we teach it to the children, attack problems, not people. Thank you. So, okay, we can go back to the other slide. Thanks. Does anybody have a comment about this? Do you have trouble with this? Do you have trouble with other people moving past just being upset at people who are doing bad things? Can you see what it means to not focus on the person who's doing this? But okay, Karen's got her hand up. Thank you.
I'll say this: I'm a white woman, but the depth and breadth of the misogyny that is going on right now in governance is very difficult, A, not to take it personally, and B, for me not to judge the men that are complicit and just silent when it continues to happen. And just in the last 10 days, the number of female reporters who have been attacked that are still allowed in that little bubble that he's made is phenomenal. And I can only imagine how horrific it is for a person of color. So I will say that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. There's a lot of, yes. David.
Yes, I find this what I want to say, very creative and positive in a way, optimistic, because it gives us as individuals a lot more choices, a lot more levers, so to speak. We can't can't necessarily change other people unless we hold them at gunpoint or something like that. And who wants to do that? But we can join with other people, other groups and organizations to get rid of homelessness, to get rid of poverty, whatever, nuclear weapons. And so I find this is, and not to get hung up on people because that can be a dead end trap.
Thank you, David. Yeah. I mean, it can also be, sometimes you can get rid of the person, but if there's in the place, but if there's a whole system behind them, that doesn't solve the problem. So in a way, this is an attitude of nonviolence, but also it's practical. Okay, we have 2 other people raise their hands, and I can't see who their names are. One of you who's raised your hand, you want to go ahead and make a comment?
Regan.
Okay, Regan. Karen.
Okay.
Karen.
I'm having a little tech issues of my own here. So I am mindful and remembering a concept of the 2 hands of nonviolence, and I think it might have come from Barbara Deming. I'm not certain about that, but it basically goes, with this hand, I'm going to resist the harm that you are creating and inflicting on people. And with this hand, I'm going to reach out to your humanity and strive to embrace and acknowledge that humanity, and also to strive to understand what has led you to the place that you are on whatever the issue or conflict is. That resonates with me. The two hands of nonviolence.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
I
you.
love that.
Thank you. I do too. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Karen.
I just wanted to talk about our nonviolence education group has been working a lot with Dignity Index. And there is an organization called dignity.us. I put it in the chat. And they talk about the 8 stages of speech. And the first 4 stages are stages of contempt for the other person. And the next 4 stages are dignity towards the other person. So no matter how much you're in conflict with that person, you treat that person with dignity. And it's mostly focused on the type of language you use in those different stages.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Jean Scudder.
This is not exactly on this topic, but a couple people in the chat have wanted to know if they can have copies of if we will be sending out copies of the PowerPoint, and then also references for the 6 principles of where those come from.
Yes, we will definitely be sending out a copy of the slides, and we'll give some information about the principles. Pam and I do nonviolence in the Martin Luther King tradition workshops, and that's where these things come from.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce has his hand up.
And the principles come from his book, Stride Toward Freedom.
Just
and
very
we'll provide a sheet for you.
Thank you, Pam. I just want to put into the chat, so if people want to get a link, there's an excellent video by Ro Khanna, the congressperson from California, who was the primary sponsor and co-sponsor of the Epstein bill, in an interview with Brian Tyler Cohen, where he describes the strategy that he used, which is what succeeded ultimately in getting the Epstein bill passed and in splitting the MAGA coalition. And it was treating the MAGA base and the politicians representing that base with respect, such that he was able to get Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace to co-sponsor the bill. So he was treating them with respect while also being steadfast in his opposition to the policies. So that description by Ro Khanna, I think, is very timely, very appropriate, and speaks to the political moment from this particular slide.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Oh, I would love to read that.
We would love. We would love. We will put out a list of resources after the workshop. But if other people have things they'd like to add to that, send them to us after the workshop, and we'll add that too. And Steve has his hand up.
Yes, understanding this slide helps me with an example, and I'm not sure I understand parts of it, but one thing that resonated is aggression toward landlords. And the conditions are that people don't have enough jobs that pay well enough. Mm-hmm. And so we don't understand how landlords have, repairs and equity and capital and things, all that. But I think that's just one example of, I've heard people say a landlord should be put in jail. It's like, well, my landlord has been really nice to me. And so that's just an example. And if people have other examples for the conciliation to people, I'll listen to that too. That'll help me understand it. Thank you.
This is great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands, and I think we're ready to move on. Pam, we were
the spectrum of allies. I think
we're just going to keep going. We were going to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Should we just keep going?
We will take a short break after the spectrum of allies.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, as we're beginning to work with people, what do we need to do in terms of how are we going to recruit people? How are we going to talk to people? And this little tool has proved to be very useful to a lot of activists. Some of you may be familiar with it. But so one of the things we want to point out is that if you look over onto the far left side at the bottom, it says active allies. That's kind of who our movement people are. And opposite that is the active opponents. Usually that's who we get upset with. But what this model suggests is that the people that we need to be working with are not the active opponents, probably aren't going to change their minds, but the other people. So I'm going to ask for somebody to read the names of the other groups there. I'm just going to ask Michael. Are you there, Michael? Who are the other people that we might?
Yes. So after active opponents, we're trying to reach passive opponents to move them to become in the middle, at least receptive to new information. And then we're moving that group into passive allies, ones who aren't willing yet to take big risks, but maybe do small things like writing letters to the editor. And then we're moving those folks into the category of active allies, which are people who take risks, who are willing to train others, to recruit others into being part of our movement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, what we're going to do is to try to do some thinking about who our active allies are, who our passive allies are, and who are the people in the middle and the passive opponents. John has his hand up, so I'm going to call on him before we move on, and then we're going to do the next thing here.
Yeah, about active opponents. I was very active during the time that King was in Chicago. I was active in the peace movement, and I would go to demonstrations. But after 15, 20 minutes, I would cross the street to where there was usually a counter demonstration. I don't believe I changed anybody's ideology, but by talking to people, asking questions, and behaving respectfully, what I did manage to do was change their image of who they were demonstrating against. They realized that we were people capable of respecting them. We did acknowledge their humanity. And to me, that's the first step for engaging active opponents. I don't think we should give up. It's true, we should spend our time talking to passive opponents, but we shouldn't give up on active opponents.
Thank you, John. That's a beautiful story. Wow, thank you. Okay, Pam.
Okay, so what we're going to do is go into groups just for about 5 minutes. And the idea here is to be specific. So just talk among yourselves and see who has an example of their community, their own setting. And then the group can use that just for practice in this section. And so, the idea is to be specific here. So like, don't just put the general public or, something like that. Like, try to be specific about the groups, whether they're political groups or social groups or faith groups or whatever, who you're trying to move and to where. So we'll spend about 5 minutes doing this, and then we'll come back. Tom?
Yeah, so as you go when you're in the breakout room, you won't be able to see this chart. So I put into the text, into the chat, I put those 5 stages so you could remember them. So
thank you, Tom, for doing it.
We're back?
Yeah.
Okay. We just like to hear a little bit about how that exercise went for you. Could you begin to think of some people in those categories or people or groups that you might be able to reach? We don't have time, let's just hear from a couple of groups.
I will start, but I couldn't find how to raise my hand. I want to reiterate something that John said, which I think is really important if you're trying to talk to somebody who may have very different ideas, and about listening so carefully and asking the right questions to find common ground.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And am I unmuted now? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
I couldn't hear
okay,
you
good.
before, but yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that point, and it brings to mind Robert Reich's quote in the last class. I don't know if anyone has seen the movie, but he says one of the best ways to learn is to have a conversation with someone who disagrees with you. It's just really important that I have examples of those in my own life. If we have more time at the end, I'd be happy to share talking across ideological boundaries. So who else has, what other group? How did you talk about this? Did you put in some names of organizations, or what did you do in your group?
Jean Buskin has her hand up.
Thank you.
It wasn't exactly group, just individuals. So one example I thought of was when I was at the last No Hands, hands off demonstration. There were people that came by, No Kings demonstration. There were people that came by that didn't even know that there was a demonstration going on. And they saw signs that they agreed with and they joined in. So I'd say that's an example of passive allies becoming more active. And I got into the people I met, I got into good conversations with them. And I think that was like a little nudge for them to be more active.
That's a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing that.
I see John Otto.
Is there another comment? Yeah. Okay.
John Otto.
Okay, Susan is there too. But in terms of engaging people that disagree with us, I have a practice of doing that primarily on Facebook with people that basically disagree with me. And I find that, yes, asking questions and then affirming where we agree. But I've also learned that if you listen carefully, sometimes you can ask a question which reveals to the other person that the conflict just isn't between you and them, it's within them. And your question raises that. And whenever we human beings experience dissonance within ourselves, something has to change. But that only happens when we listen carefully and we ask the right questions. But if we ask questions, people at least know we really want to understand them, and we change a lot of the hostility that they may feel to us when they realize that we disagree with them.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Thank you. Another comment?
Susan.
Yes, FOR, as the oldest interfaith peace organization, looks to our passive allies being greatly the faith community, all faith communities, and that we should look to reclaiming our faiths from all forms of ideology and extremism. And in this moment in particular, how can we look at our faith traditions to really ground ourselves in the teachings of our prophets and what would they do in this time, which means love and compassion for all, and where in our communities can we reach out to assist those in need. So that's in terms of passivity, just encouraging our faith communities to be more active.
That's great. That's great.
There's a comment in the chat I could read from Michael Siptroff. reach seniors where we're at. Social Security and Medicare are threatened. Food costs too high, as well as medications. And almost anybody you see of an age or poorer people are going to be able to agree with that, and that's a hook to get them involved in concern about how the government is involved in that.
And Michael, you have your hand up. Did you want
I
to
do,
add on to that?
and I'm aware I'm saying a lot, so hope other people who haven't said much can speak freely. I just wanted to mention that in the anti-nuclear movement, one of our members is reaching out to Catholics in particular because the popes have spoken against the dangers of nuclear weapons, and to get local congregations, parishes to be involved in many ways is important. The other thing I was going to say, the groups like I'm involved with, the Kiwanians, if you're a Rotarian, you can have the Rotary, have somebody come and speak. So the chambers of commerce, sometimes, even though conservative, they can also be involved in helping your local efforts to make our world better. So there's lots of different ways, or teachers unions, like I have been a teacher activist. So look to where you are involved and help to move those people along the spectrum into activism. Thank you.
That is a great comment. Yes, start where you are. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. That's
Pam,
great.
we have one more hand.
Okay.
Andrea?
Andrea Biggs has a hand up.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned about the conversation about moving folks from opponents to allies. I'm a little concerned that we're talking about building relationships for the sake of the movement. And I want to build relationships for the sake of the relationship. Because it seems like otherwise we're dealing with a transactional moment that really doesn't align well with our bigger purposes. So I just when I go out to talk to folks who might become allies, I want to keep them in mind as whole human beings with whom I can have a whole relationship. Thanks.
I think that's a really important point, and I think it's exactly right. And if we have the Kingian principles as our foundation for doing the building work, that includes in the 6 steps of Kingian nonviolence, reconciliation is the last point. So not all nonviolent strategies are seeking that, but in Kingian nonviolence, the idea is that you are trying to create a situation where you have, you may not become best friends with your opponent or people who disagree with you, but you have an understanding and you have mutual respect. So I really take your point to heart. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I think we're going to move on. We're a little sure. We want to make sure we get a couple of more things in. So instead of a full break, can we just stand up and stretch just to move ourselves? And then maybe before transitioning on to the next part of your agenda today, that you can get a little break. But we'll just stretch for a minute here and then continue on. So let's say 1 minute.
Okay. Is what we call care and mutual aid. That this is intense, this work is intense, and so we remember to take care of ourselves in whatever way you can, whether it's going for a walk in the woods or meditating. We should take care of each other and care for others affected by what's happening. And I think people are already, I've heard a lot of stories already about people doing those things, but we just want to put it in here as a reminder. So we can move on to the next slide.
Okay, so we're going to move on to a conversation about non-cooperation. So we've all seen, you guys mentioned the 7 million people for no kings, and all of that is really great and exciting, but there needs to be more. Like, it's not enough. Like, we have to continue in movements to escalate. So we want to keep all that going because it's really important. All of the protesting is really important, but we want to begin to add other forms of non-cooperation to that. And I love this quote by Gene Sharp that I'll just read quickly to show he's trying to illustrate how the people have the power. And so he says, by themselves, rulers cannot collect taxes, enforce repressive laws and regulations, keep trains running on time, prepare national budgets, direct traffic, manage ports, print money, repair roads, keep markets supplied with food, make steel, build rockets, train the police and army, issue postage stamps, or even milk a cow. People provide these services to the ruler through a variety of organizations and institutions. If people would stop providing these skills, the ruler could not rule. I just think that's a very provocative quote, just really makes us think about where the power lies. So on the next slide, we see that different forms of non-cooperation include sit-ins, strikes, all things that many of you have been involved in over years, civil disobedience and constructive interventions as well. So Mary Lou now will talk a little bit about how we can think about all this.
Next slide.
Mary.
There we go. Okay, so one of the models that we use as we're thinking about how we can add non-cooperation strategies to our existing protest strategies is this model. And this is an illustration of what Pam was just saying. We have a particular government regime at the moment, and it's held up by all of these different pillars. Let's see. Can somebody read these pillars for me? I'm a volunteer. Andrea, are you here? Can you do this?
I am here. I can see these pillars of support are civil service, police and the military, the media, faith communities, labor, and business.
And there probably are some more as well, but at least this gives us something to start with. And this is kind of just an illustration of what Pam was just reading from Gene Sharp, that any government needs all of these pieces in order to go forward. So let's do the next slide. So what we as the movement need to do is to think about how to weaken some of those pillars that are holding up the existing regime. So can we think about, there was some conversation earlier about faith communities. Okay, how could faith communities have an impact? How could faith communities have an impact? Anybody have a sense? How are faith communities being used to hold up the existing structure? What else could faith communities do? Susan raised her hand.
Yes, for example, when we think of the genocide in Gaza, we think of Zionism as an ideology that's been distorted from the beautiful religion of Judaism to perpetrate these crimes. But in fact, white Christian nationalism, such as Christians United for Israel, has about 12 million members strong. And that's even a greater force that drives the U.S. government to be complicit and fund and assist the genocide.
And so one of the other kinds of things, that's only a part of a faith community. So maybe there's other parts of the faith community that can be speaking. I love the picture. Okay, I love the pictures of the priests who went out in Chicago to the ICE center and were trying to offer communion. And then when they weren't allowed to go in and offer communion, they came back the next weeks and held a mass outside of it in all their priestly garments. The Catholics, particularly, I'm sure because in Chicago there would be a lot of Mexican people that had been brought in by ICE and would be particularly relevant there. But that's a faith community taking a stand against what's happening. John?
Yes, the mainline churches in our country have all pretty much agreed publicly and within themselves that the major heresy we're facing today is Christian nationalism. And a lot of congregations are very busy educating their people why nationalism is incompatible with being a Christian. It's not that against nations, but the fact that we limit our commitment and valuation of people to those who share citizenship. And I think that's becoming a very effective way of us challenging one of the columns of religious columns that's supporting what's going on.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Elaine has her hand up.
I'd just like to report that the Mennonite denomination is organized nationally and has had several sit-ins in the Senate or in Congress and been arrested and used their strengths of singing and to show their opposition to the Gaza genocide. And so this is something new, and it's 2 years old now, I think. But that's an example of a group that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. Okay, so let's take the next slide. Let's move on here. But you get a little bit of sense of this. Okay.
Getting the pillars to crack is the next one.
Yes. Do you want to read this, Pam? Can you?
Yeah, I think it's just calling out the different ways that people are acting. You know, people can speak, make statements, participating in protests to organizing candidates. It's listing a variety of ways that we can not basically standing in the way, not letting things play. Dr. King said we have a responsibility to disobey unjust laws. So it's, just, finding ways to disrupt things. And then I think we can go on to the next slide, which the slide that Mary Lou showed with the pillars, it looks very stable because all those pillars are holding up the regime. But if you flip the triangle part of it, we can see that the people really have a lot of the power, and then the regime is just kind of teetering on its point. I mean, it's just a way of illustrating that it is possible to disrupt these systems. And so we'll move on to them. Go ahead, Mary.
The point of democracy is that the people have the power. No, that's why we vote. So it's not a radical idea, it's the foundational idea.
That's an important point. And then the next slide is the attributes of a successful pro-democracy movement, that it's diverse. I was sharing with Mary Lou that initially some of the organizing for No Kings was, I jumped on a couple of Zooms and they were really all white led. And that got changed along the way, but it was problematic for a lot of people of color initially. So just making sure that there's as much diversity as possible, and expanding the repertoire of tactics, like not always doing the same thing, like not always just marching, but always trying to adapt to what's going on. getting loyalties to shift and maintaining discipline. And I think, Mary Lou, you had something to say about discipline, the importance of discipline.
We're really talking about nonviolence discipline, and as a successful, and we've seen that with the No Kings movement of people being able to gather by the millions and maintain a nonviolence discipline, and that is really, really important strategically as well as a principle for people like FOR folks who have long commitments to nonviolence. It's also strategically really important because we know that if there is violence of some kind, that gives the regime an excuse to crack down at a different level. As we have the right to personally assemble, it's part of our Bill of Rights. We have a right to personally assemble nonviolently. So that's the main thing.
Thank you.
And resilience is just, let's not give up. Okay.
Right. And so the next slide
David
is level of.
Okay.
Okay.
David, you want to comment?
Oh, I just wanted to say that lately, in the last several months in particular, there's been a big increase, I think, in people who show support and express it in one, either online or letters or whatever it is, or in person. People who have been affected by Trump administration and everything, and there are a lot of support, and that people who were, say, weakening that pillars of support, and people who they're really turning in a lot of ways. For instance, lately there was a lot of support by some particularly Democrat politicians who were supporting the 6 people that Trump said ought to be basically hung, and so not leaving those out people high and dry, but they're really that's another creative way in addition to protest that is very important, an active bystander kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So there are.
We got a couple of hands up for a minute here.
Pam, this is Karen. I have a question. When you look at the pillars of support, and I know they were examples of what's holding up a government, but I think they were very good ones given where we are right now. My question is, we have not brought those pillars down. The administration has, by the very definition of authoritarianism. And to me, the question I have is then, how do we transfer that into an appropriate action? Because we aren't the ones bringing those pillars down, the media, the government, the civil servants. They're already down, but they've come down from the authoritarianism as opposed to us as a movement bringing change to our communities.
You know,
it's an interest. Go ahead. Was somebody saying something?
Well, just to say, we're only able today to do an introduction to these materials. And so if people want to talk about them some more, we need to set another time to do that. So there's a lot more to talk about. That's what I hear. You're really raising really important questions. I just don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting, point to talk about, because I think as some things are coming down, people are creating other, like there's lots of, in the area of media, there's lots of new things coming online to address some of these issues. But like Mary Lou said, we don't have time to explore it all today. So we're at our concluding points now. We just wanted to point out that there are levels of non-cooperation, individual levels, collective, and mass. And so an example of an individual, we won't be able to play all these, but would be teachers and librarians who are really pushing back on the book banning. I mean, they're really facing a lot of hostilities. You guys know of examples of this in your own community. So there are some real heroic things that teachers and librarians are doing these days. Also, there are military people who are, Mary Lou, maybe we can play the next video, but I'll just say here that these are two active members of the National Guard who are publicly saying they're going to disobey unjust orders. And then let's just play this next video, Tom. It's just 1 minute.
Congressman Chris Deluzio joined 5 other Democratic lawmakers, all of them military or intelligence community veterans, to urge current officials to disobey illegal orders. Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin, a former CIA analyst, posted the video. The lawmakers say threats to the Constitution aren't just coming from abroad.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution, and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Slotkin told the New York Times that she's heard from active duty troops who are
Okay, that's
concerned about the
good.
legality of strikes
Thank
on people
you.
the Trump administration.
Thank you. So that's an example of where, first we had, members of the National Guard speaking out. Now Congress people are speaking out and saying don't obey unjust orders. And then there are lots of other examples, Target, Tesla, lots of things you've seen, ways that people are not cooperating. And Mary Lou, we're at 11, so since we have a little more time, I'd love for us to listen to the librarian, if we can do that. Tom, would you mind calling up
We should say that in the film, you show a number of the threats that are being made against librarians who are opposing these book bans. Let's take a look.
I'm doing a criminal investigation into some of your staff.
I cannot imagine my face on the wanted poster and my friends being taken away in handcuffs.
You're coming for teachers and librarians, and they know it.
Audrey, we heard you in a little bit of you in that clip. We don't see you because you were shot in silhouette. But then later in the film, you do show your face. What made you decide that you wanted to stand up and be seen and be known?
The urgency behind the message and the call to action in the film required me to be brave like the other collaborators in the film. And my hope is that just that one act of resilience and courage might inspire other librarians to speak up and to tell their stories and tell the stories of their students whose reading materials are being pulled from the shelves. And it really wasn't a choice from there.
Audrey, why is it important for people who live in states and communities where there aren't these book ban campaigns to be aware of this and to be aware of what's going on in other places?
I don't think there's many places that are really immune to what is happening. And the more that it spreads, the more it's likely to come to your community and to impact where you are as well. We hope that no matter where people are in their communities, whether it's impacting them directly, that they will turn around and tell someone the story and bring the films to their communities so that when and if this does begin to happen, they'll know how to respond, and they'll form a network and they'll form their own movement so that they can counter it.
Kim, how did the community?
Okay, thank you. So that's a good example. Does anyone have an example from your communities of something the teachers or librarians are faced with or how they're reacting?
Not seeing any. Not
No,
seeing,
no hands. Okay. Okay. So so that's a good example for how individuals are. And then we watched what the Congress people are doing. And then, of course, there are collective actions that are boycotts. And Target has lost $12 billion in revenue from the boycott there. I noticed there in Newport, Oregon, the administration is trying to put an ICE facility there, and the city council officials just had a huge, strong reaction saying no. And they are coming together to fight that in every way that they can.
We've got another slide here. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mary Lou, what did you?
Yeah, there's our slide. Okay.
Okay. And then the next one, one of the things in building the movement in terms of the steps of tinging nonviolence, which we don't have time to really go through fully today. The first two steps are information gathering and education, thinking about all the information and research that you need, but then how are you going to educate yourself, the people immediately around you, and the general public? And so we wanted to play this clip of a teenager speaking to the city council about ICE.
I just wanted to tell you guys and say that I really hope you guys do side with us and you guys really do hear what we're saying for you guys, because all of us here are actually trying to fight for what's right and fight for our rights. And I just want to tell you guys that I'm scared for my parents to walk out there to walk out their house because I might not be able to say goodbye to them if they go to work. I might not ever be able to say bye or see them again if you guys don't side with us. And I'm scared because of it, because they fought so hard to come here and choose a life for their kids. And I really hope you guys do hear what everyone in this room has been saying, and I hope you guys do side with us, because we are fighting for our rights. And we are getting treated like animals because people judge us by the color of our skin and the way that we talk. And we have a president that acts like a child and doesn't side with us because of the way he thinks about us. And we have a police department that doesn't do anything about us, and that we are here fighting more than they are. So I hope that you guys actually do hear what everyone in this center is hearing or talking about, so you guys can side with us and listen to what everyone's saying, because everyone is scared. I'm scared that I'm never going to be able to see all my friends again. I'm scared that their parents are going to be gone one day. I'm scared that all of us are going to have to fend for ourselves. I'm scared that one day at school that I'm going to get held by people that I don't know, people that are covered, people that I can't identify because they wear masks and they don't properly ID themselves. I'm scared that everyone that I love I'm not going to be able to see them again, because even though that they're U.S. citizens, they don't care about us. They treat us like dogs. They treat us like animals. No one here cares about us because of the color of our skin. So I'm asking you guys, every single one of you guys that are sitting up here, to actually hear us and do something about it, because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of telling my mom and dad every day after school that, have you seen the new video of ICE pulling someone over because of the color of their skin? I'm tired of everything. And I hope you guys really do something about it, because I really do want something to change, because I should not live like this as a 16-year-old. I shouldn't be scared. I should be focusing on school, and I can't even focus on school.
That was so powerful, Pam. Thank you.
Yes, it is a powerful clip. I'm wondering if anyone has a reaction to this.
I think maybe we can just move on. We've got about 5 more minutes, so.
Yeah, it's kind of leaves you speechless. So I understand how there's that feeling. Okay, we know the Jimmy Kimmel example is another people power, kind of example that he's back on the air. And then just wanted to call out another non-cooperation effort coming up that you guys may already know about, but the mass blackout, which is kind of a mass strike too, because it says no work. Now, everybody can't do that, but it is calling for no spending and no work. So another non-cooperation. And then Black women are also have a campaign called We Ain't Buying It, that's focused on defending democracy and pausing spending. So there are lots of efforts going on. another historical example is Cesar Chavez and the Great Boycott, which you all remember. But let's go ahead and see if we can get in the Rachel Maddow clip, because I think you'll appreciate seeing some of the strategies that they use in this clip. That's on, it's
right
from the
northern
beginning
edge
to
of
308.
Chicago, right on the shore of Lake Michigan, the town of Evanston, Illinois, has a population of about 75,000. It's the home of Northwestern University. It's a beautiful place. I did an event there just about a year ago. I really loved it. But right now, that town is turning out to be a crucible for the forging of incredibly determined people. Incredibly determined and resourceful, brave, no-nonsense Americans. Take it from a local resident named Emily Miller. She's an Evanston mom who goes by Emily Thinks Aloud on social media.
Chicago is traumatized right now. We have armed, masked agents running around disappearing people in our communities. There's no measuring the people who don't get disappeared because you're out there with your whistle, or kids who feel safe because of school patrols, or a tamale vendor who doesn't get kidnapped because someone went at 6 a.m. and bought all their tamales. And there's no measuring it. You just have to have faith and know that hope is an action. And they're getting started. They're going to get more violent. I hope they just leave and give up. But we're just getting started too. And we're not giving up.
We are just getting started too. We are not giving up. When we reached Ms. Miller yesterday, she had just come from a local food drive in Evanston where the line for people waiting to donate stretched for block after block after block for hours. Again, the line to donate, as the local NBC station put it, Evanston food drive overwhelms, quote, in the best possible way as SNAP recipients face uncertainty. The response to what the Trump administration is doing with federal agents in the streets and these immigration actions has been pretty remarkable all over this country. But right now, Chicago is really putting on a clinic in bravery and relentlessness in terms of the response. As Reuters reports from Chicago today, quote, in Facebook groups and on Signal chats, tens of thousands of residents regularly crowdsource information on immigration agents' last known locations, neighborhoods being targeted that day, and importantly, the license plates, makes, and models of the rental cars used by agents, which can change daily. Organized by city and neighborhood and block, these rapid response teams in Chicagoland are using whistles, using cell phones, using online text chains, using their own voices to alert their neighbors when ICE is coming. You can see the determination of Chicagoland in the schools, whether it is students walking out to protest ICE arrests or parents standing guard after hearing that ICE and Border Patrol are nearby. You can see the determination at the gates of the local ICE prison a few weeks ago. We also showed you, you may remember this Eucharistic procession of Catholic clergy who came to offer communion to the prisoners inside. This weekend, they were back again, organizing a mass outside the immigration prison and trying again to give the prisoners communion. Rather than scaring people away, what ICE and Trump's agents are doing in Chicagoland really seems to be making them stronger as the reaction in Chicago and the rapid response in neighborhood.
Thank you. So lots of different ideas and strategies. I'm just wondering, is anyone using whistles in your community now? Passing out whistles?
They're passing them out in Olympia, yeah.
Are they? Okay.
In Seattle too. Lots of whistles.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, Mary Lou, we are now at time. I think we've gone through the essence of non-cooperation and what we wanted to share with you. Maybe we'll just fast forward to the last slide. And then Mary Lou, if you would make a closing comment after we watch this, we'll just watch like the first minute of this domino chain, the very last slide.
Okay, many forms of non-cooperation are out there. And I just want to say, before we get to this last one, that non-cooperation is the main key to being able to deal with autocracy. That's the work that came out of the research that Erica Chenoweth did, whose book we talked about earlier. And these forms of, when she's the one who came up with the idea based on their evidence that if you have 3.5% of the population engaged in action against an authoritarian regime, the regime has a very high chance of falling. So it's the non-cooperation strategies that we've been looking at as we built our movement that we need to be able to move forward with. And I hope you have gotten some sense of both what's been happening already in terms of non-cooperation, and it's given us ideas about what we might do in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Lou. And so we'll just watch this last video. It's very interesting.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes, but what you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino, which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes, and the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than 1 meter tall. Ready? Boom. That was 13 dominoes. If I had 29 dominoes, the last domino would be as tall as the Empire State Building.
Okay, we could stop it there. But it just shows that all of our small acts collectively can have a great impact, and we can stop.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you all. And, we look forward to hearing from you at later ways, the kinds of ideas you got from this. What can you imagine could you be done in your community? What do you imagine can be done for us as a collective community over the long haul? Where we've come, we've seen how far we've come, and we've seen what are the kinds of things we need to do as we move forward in what's a very challenging time. But with a lot of people who are already standing up in very powerful ways. So there will be an evaluation of the workshop, and if you want to add some things to that about an idea or so that you took from this, that would be helpful to us. So again, thank you all for being here, and the conference goes on. We're finished with the training workshop. Thank you. I'm going to we're turning this back over to David.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mary Lou and Pam. That was wonderful. Right now, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll have
So I think we're now turning to the Mike Yarrow Peace Fellowship panel, and I believe that we're going to have several videos, and I think Una is here to speak in person. And so, Una, I'm going to cue you up to lead off. And after the presentations, what we're hearing from the Mike Yarrow Peace Fellows about is two things. One, sort of a brief report on their project, what it is that they're working on, the issue that they're working on. And secondly, if they care to comment, what do they think about the rising tide of authoritarianism and the role of youth in resisting that authoritarianism, that dictatorship tendency. I've put into the chat, if people want to open up the chat, there's a recent slide deck that's put together by Freedom Trainers, the group that has trained Pam and Mary Lou and myself back in September in Seattle, and has been involved with training over 500,000 people across the country in the last several months with exponential training trainers, and the trainers go out, and there have been probably 20 different trainings since September by the group that we were trained with, a group of about 80 in Seattle from Washington State and from Oregon. In any event, into the chat is a slide deck from Freedom Trainers on the role of youth historically in resisting and toppling dictators. And so if, not now, you want to hear the Mike Yarrow's speaking, but if you want to turn to that deck, that's a nice resource. So my job was to introduce the Mike Yarrow Peace Fellowship. For those people who don't know, the Mike Yarrow Peace Fellowship started off as the Peace Activist Trainee Program back in the year 2000, making it, as far as I know, the longest running, 25 years and heading into 26, the longest running long-term training program for young activists in the country in nonviolent direct action. And Ellen Finkelstein, who's here on in the conference, was one of the primary, as staff of the Western Washington FOR, and a cohort and colleague with Mike Yarrow and Ruth Yarrow back in the early 2000s, carried this program remarkably well. We had to transform it in the year 2014 when Mike died of cancer, because we were going to be run by all volunteers, no staff. And since that time, Mary Lou Finley, my wife Janice, and I have been a three-part directors, volunteer directors, to try to keep the program going. And it's changed, but enough said. I think most of you know about it. We are currently courting, I think, over 200 young people that have been trained through the program. Our current cohort, we accepted more than 20, which was, I believe, a record for the number accepted. And as with most years, there's been attrition, so we're now down to 17. But we have a lot of alumni, and we've got a very enthusiastic band, and you'll hear from 4 of them today. So Una, I'm going to hand it off to you. Go ahead and introduce your project, and then when you're done, you can hand it back to Tom, and Tom, you can go ahead and play the 3 different videos that we have from Brady Johnson, from Vi Lee, and from Sneha Nankyoliar. I have a real hard time with Sneha's last name, but in any event, Una, you're off and running.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Una. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a 3rd-year student at Evergreen State College in Olympia. And I didn't put a slideshow together for today. I have a lot of photos that I would love to show, but maybe that can be at a different conference, of the recent workshops I've been putting together with Washington Against Nuclear Weapons. So this year I've been focusing on nuclear weapons, disarmament, activism, because I've noticed there's a lot of groups in Washington that are doing that work, and there are a lot of good community surrounding that issue. And so I wanted to explore that this year. In the past, I've worked more on climate activism, but I'm seeing a lot of, in recent years, I've seen a lot of the overlap between militarism and environmental justice, environmental racism, which are all topics that I'm passionate about working on. And so I guess with the Mike Yarrow Peace Fellowship project, to kind of focus the work I'm doing in these next few months, my goal is to continue helping Washington Against Nuclear Weapons host workshops, education workshops about the issue of nuclear weapons, because this is a really critical year. As many of you probably know, the New START treaty is due to expire, which is a treaty between the US and Russia, agreeing that these 2 countries will not continue creating nuclear weapons, and neither of these countries have committed to re-signing the treaty. And so a lot of people in the US, especially my generation, the younger generations, have forgotten about the importance of nuclear weapons and their connection with all of these other issues. And so I guess the concept of the workshops that I've been working on with my other teammates, Sean, Kim, who lives in Seattle, Mango, who lives in Olympia, we've been kind of brainstorming how can we make activism fun, community building, because nuclear weapons is a really frightening issue. A lot of these issues are scary, and a lot of people are feeling pretty paralyzed and overwhelmed. And so how do we're dealing with this overall problem of like cultural isolation, and then these crises that we're facing. And so how can we mobilize people? The one film that the Mike Yarrow Peace Fellowship showed us earlier this or in August when we were doing our training, or I guess it was September, was a film about the youth resistance in it was somewhere in Eastern Europe. Can someone remind me of that country name? Is it
talking about Serbia?
Yes, Serbia. Yeah, the Serbian revolution there. And I found that really inspiring because the youth activists in Serbia really emphasize like the way you bring in youth and just like energy to a movement is to make it seem fun and cool and make it like a cultural thing. It's not just about talking with politicians. It's also about building community and having parties and sharing music and art. And so I'm really the last workshop we just had was last week in Seattle. Over 20 people came. Kim was she's kind of like a party thrower, and she kind of gave us the idea of what if we made this workshop like a game instead of like a presentation. And so the bulk of the workshop was actually we just played a game together about nuclear weapons, and we assigned people to like different teams, like representing different fictional countries. And then like we tried to like play out like what would it look like negotiating nuclear weapons proliferation and like the second nuclear weapons arms race. And so we kind of just tossed people into the game. We didn't give a ton of background, but people really engaged. We gave them food, we gave them free pizza, and people had a really great time. And we got to see like play out. We actually like 2 countries got destroyed from nuclear weapons. That was pretty devastating. But then in the end, we were able to get nuclear peace. And in some, it was just like I guess I learned from this past workshop, like how important it is to make this work fun, and that's how we're going to be able to engage more people in this work. And also the reason why we've had 2 workshops so far, and we're planning on having another one in Bellingham in January, and hopefully another one in Seattle. Like the reason why we've been able to put these 2 workshops together is because I have a really like solid team. We're only 4 people, but we really bonded this past summer going on the nuclear weapons pilgrimage in Eastern Washington. And so another thing I've learned over these past few months is to do successful actions, you really need to like trust the people you're working with and have genuine relationships. And otherwise you're not going to be able to be in it for the long haul. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to talk too long, but so that's what I've been working on. I'm excited to see that what the other Mike Yarrow Peace Fellows are working on too. And if anyone has questions, I'm sure I left things out, or if anyone wants to ask something, feel free. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Una, could you comment briefly on how many people you had at the game in Seattle and how many folks showed up and average age of the people that attended?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start. So the first workshop we had was in Olympia. That was October, like late October. We had around 15 people at that workshop, and it was average age range was a bit older. And that was more of a standard presentation format, where we also had audience discussions. And then the second workshop in Seattle, we had 24 participants. And most of them were like between 20 and 30, 20s, 30s. And so that was kind of interesting. They weren't really college students. They were working age people. And that's because the person who is recruiting most of these folks, she is like in her late 20s. And that's where her community is. And that was super interesting to work with that generation of people because that tends to be like we usually in movements we have the college and high school age students or retired folks, and we don't have that middle ground. And I think that is really key for us to have success in these coming years in building movement work, is engaging that middle generation. Yeah.
So I have a question. I put my hand up, but I'll answer my hand. I work with the Coalition to Abolish Nuclear Weapons in Olympia, and also with Olympia FOR. And we have found in things that we've done that it's important to tell people what to do, what they can do next, and to have some concrete things, small and large. Have you, has your group done any of that kind of suggesting to follow up, or getting names and getting back to people, which is always harder than it seems like it should be? But do you have any things like that that you've been doing?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. At the first workshop, we always bring a sign up sheet, so getting people's contact info is step number one. And then the first workshop, we had people sign postcards to their local representative, and then we're gonna mail. We want to bring them in person to the office, so we still need to do that. But then the second workshop, we went a little overtime, but our goal was to invite people to that same day call and leave a voice message to Patty Murray. And like we have a script that we wrote up, and in the end it wasn't realistic time-wise to have people, because it was like a long night, so a lot of people didn't call that same day, but we sent follow-up emails and texts to ask people to call Patty Murray, talking about how they are not going to vote for people in the future who don't prioritize nuclear weapons in their campaign work. And then, so that's like the first ask we have for people. And then the second ask is Kim is going to have some one-on-one conversations with the people who came to the workshop to see if they want to help us organize future ones. And so that's kind of a way to engage more with this work. And then I'm tentatively with Ground Zero. I know Firefly, one person from Ground Zero, is here, thinking about how can, like, these workshops, if we can recruit enough people, it would be great to ask some of those folks to come help organize some sort of mass demonstration at Ground Zero, which they always do in the summer. But with the goal of this next 2026 mass mobilization at Ground Zero being to engage just more of the people, not just the same people who always come, but expanding the movement, and maybe having more trainings and also having more media attention there. So that's another plan that's in the works.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And Tom, I think we should go ahead and go to the videos so we don't run over time.
Very good. I have two videos. This is the first one from Brady Johnson, and then we also have one from have another one here. So this is about 7 minutes.
Hello, my name is Brady Johnson. I'm a Mike Peace Fellow of the 2025-2026 class, and I'm here to talk to you about my project. And so what I'm doing with this project is I'm creating a new student organization at the Evergreen State College, dedicated to global solidarity. But that's sort of changed now because I'm coordinating with other people, and they have brought their interest in what they think is important in. And so we have a broader coalition of people, and we're advocating for very intersectional things, but they're different, right? And so we have successfully created that student organization. It exists. It is titled the Evergreen Peace Coalition and Anti-War Establishment. And by anti-war, we're talking very broadly. We're talking the war on immigrants. We're talking the war on trans youth. We're talking economic warfare. in terms of like economic coercion that's currently taking place, not only nationally, but internationally. And of course, we're talking anti-war in terms of anti-violent conflict. And so we have a few projects that we are wanting to implement. We want to implement a lecture series where we bring in people to educate greeners and students. We want to print and distribute literature. And what I really want to do with this is bring in local campaigns and local projects to students at the Evergreen State College. And so yeah, those are some of our periphery projects. But our main project that we are working on is the creation of a weekly newsroom where we sort of aggregate the news and present it to students in an accessible fashion where they can see the big picture of what is going on in our world geopolitically. And one of the reasons we're doing that is because young people, my generation, intake so much of their news from social media, right? Be it Instagram, be it Twitter. We receive so much of our news from social media. And while this does connect us with the rest of the world in a way that we really haven't known before the age of social media, it's isolating us from our neighbors. It's isolating us from the rest of our community. So in this newsroom, we are wanting to create a space for community and an accessible place where no matter how politically engaged you are, you can show up and you can contribute to discussion. And this is a place for, socio-political discussions and socio-political analysis of news and what's going on in our world. And so we're just trying to educate, right? We're trying to educate and bring awareness to the Evergreen State College of the larger picture. Which we'll see how it goes. We're hoping to start our newsrooms next quarter, in the winter quarter, starting in January. So right now it's a lot of the preliminary work for that. But yeah, why we're doing this, like I said, we saw, with social media, we can see so much, but we can sort of understand so little at the same time. So we're trying to make it so we can see a lot and understand the bigger picture and bring that to students and, have safe political discussions because a lot of people don't have that in their lives. And so, a sense of community is something that we're trying to bring. And, why it's important to do this now is because of this, rise of imperialism, this rise of authoritarianism at a global scale. It's important for people to be not only to be aware of what's going on, but to be aware of where to go and sort of fight the good fight. And that's what I'm hoping to bring. Is I'm sort of trying to bridge this gap between the Evergreen State College and college organizing and college students with local organizations doing work, be it mutual aid, unionization efforts, global solidarity efforts. I want to bring all of that to the college and just be like, hey, if you're more interested in doing more work, go here. If you're just interested in receiving information and having discussion and getting understanding, then come to our newsroom, right? So that's my project, my intention with the project. And one thing that I do want to speak on in terms of organizing as a young person is that, the analogy of activism has been described as a marathon, right? It's a marathon, so you take your time, right? You assess where you're at. You really think about, like, where am I at? Where am I going? And how can I make sure that I make it to the end of this marathon? But something that I've learned recently is it's not a marathon. It's this different sort of race. It's a marathon relay, right? We are receiving the baton from people who have already done the work, who've been doing the work for their entire lives. They've dedicated their lives to this work. And now we are receiving that baton, and we have to ensure that the baton makes it to the next generation. We have to ensure that progress is kept in order to make it to the next generation so that we can hand off the baton and they can continue the work, right? And I think this is an important realization because, to imply that it's a marathon is to imply that there's some sort of finish line to social justice, and that's not the case, right? There's not a finish line, and even if there was, I doubt that any of us are going to be alive to see it. But what we can be alive for is to see the fruits of our work lead to progress, and then we can see the next generation, when we're handing off that baton, begin to pick up the work. And so, yeah, that is all I have to say. Everybody who's resisting authoritarianism, capitalism, exploitation, oppression, like anybody who is resisting that is important. And I just want to make that known, that even if there's no tangible change on the surface level, and even if it, continues to see like we're moving backwards as a society, history and progress is not linear. And so anybody resisting, even through just daily actions of resistance, is important and valuable for the effort. So yeah.
Okay, and this is Snia Nankioliar.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Sorry, I went to give you a heads up. The volume on this one is even softer, so if you have the ability to crank up your volume, that will help.
My name is Snan Kulier, and I am a junior at North Creek High School in Bothell, Washington. I am 17 years old, and some things I like about me is I love being in nature, I love traveling, and I love hanging out with the people I love. So when I first heard about the Mike Yower Peace Fellowship, I was incredibly interested. I had previously done work with Eastside Pathways Youth Council, where I developed programs to empower the youth, like building mental health surveys and development programs. I also work with a sustainability organization where I curate content and media that should be shared to the public so that the overall media is aware about the harmful environmental practices that we are currently doing. So overall, I've had a lot of work in advocacy. I used to work at Encode Justice, which talked about the ethics of AI. So that's why I was really interested into the Mike Yower Peace Fellowship, because I believe that youth can really bring about change. So this is part of the reason why I chose my project, because I really wanted it to be youth-centered and empower the youth and showcase what they can do. So that's how I developed Econo Classroom. So Econo Classroom is basically, in an elementary classroom, market economy simulation. I started this project because I wanted to give students a hands-on exposure to the real-world systems in a safe, controlled, and structured environment, building skills that they wouldn't necessarily learn in maybe even middle school and high school, and basically build their toolbox of things that they know. So my inspiration came from my 5th grade teacher, Miss Larson, who developed an actual similar classroom economy program. I saw, even at a young age, how beneficial it was. It got me to be creative as I was able to develop my own business. And it was fun because it helped me and my peers take responsibility, make choices, and understand systems, which planted the seed for this project. And my project, I aim to be, is to make this classroom more comprehensive and accessible to all classrooms. So the project is basically creating a mini economy in a classroom. The goal is not to change the fundamental classroom and the lessons that are going on with it, but to just elevate what's already there. For example, in classrooms, teachers often have roles like cleanup member, the facilitator, the leader, the line leader. These jobs, instead of just having the teacher randomly assign someone, these would be roles that students would apply for, and they could earn money, which is the classroom currency, which they can use to buy goods from their other peers' businesses, or even get prizes from the teacher. Thus, they'll be able to understand the application process and job interviewing while still not changing the fundamental lesson plan. They'll pay rent for desks, manage budget earnings, and basically make spending or saving decisions. So to make this easier for educators, I'm planning on building a digital toolkit that includes job descriptions, applications, salary, rent structures, business license templates, reflection prompts to help students think, and budgeting and expense worksheets. So this toolkit will be part of my project. And the reason why this stuff kind of matters is because young students rarely experience real economic systems until they're already enthralled with it. Their first job is when they first hear about taxes and things like that. So having an early upfront experience can help them ease into when they actually join the economy. It helps students also learn responsibility, gain financial literacy, and develop life and workplace skills. So overall, how I'm making this happen is I'm first researching different curriculums that teachers use in my local area and design a lesson plan toolkit that will help students implement the Econo classroom. Once I have a developed curriculum, I'll be piloting this in a couple of workshops and classrooms in my local area, and then finalize the toolkit that will be published online and accessible to teachers. After that's done, my hope is to partner with local schools so that they can implement this program. Now, I understand one of the topics that we're talking about today is authoritarianism, which I believe is a system where power is centralized in a few hands, freedoms are restricted, and dissidence is often suppressed. Now, in these type of situations, it's really important to focus on the public. The public has the power to change this. That's why they're being suppressed in these authoritarianism systems. One clear example of how the youth actually stopped an authoritarian system is in Nepal in 2025, where the government banned major 26 social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, which sparked a large-scale student-led protest as young people demanded free speech, accountability, and government transparency. They were often met with violence, with security forces using tear gas, but the unrest forced the prime minister to resign and social media ban was eventually lifted. This showcases how youth can actually fight authoritarianism systems. Most people don't think of youth when they think of an economic or political problem that needs to be solved. And I want to change that by educating our youth today, by uplifting them so that they're able to fight oppressive systems and want more from their government and from the people that they're supposed to get things from. So that's really what led to my project, because if we empower the many, then we'll be able to gain a system that's best for all. So that's really my project. I thank you for listening. I hope to bring a real-world economy into the classroom through the Econo classroom, where we empower students with knowledge, agency, and resilience. If you're interested in partnering, piloting, or learning more, please contact me through LinkedIn. Thank you.
And I have thrown into the chat the link to the website where you can see the other Mike Yarrow Peace Fellows and just a quick description of their project. We're going to build out the website hopefully in the near future so that it'll take you to each page with a more thorough description of the project. And Tom, I think you said that you did not receive the video from Vi Lee. She has a project that she calls Where, and she last year had that project and requested from the WWFOR to make it a program of the WWFOR, not just a project for her for which she gets a $500 stipend, but made a budget request, and WWFOR funded that program last year, and that has now grown. Vi has grown it so that it's raised, I think, somewhere over $12,000. It has served domestic violence shelters all across the West Coast with clothing that is being requested and needed by the domestic violence and women's shelters in that area. And her link on the website does go to her website that she built that describes that in more detail. And we can probably send Vi's video to the folks that have registered for the conference so that if you want to see it, you can get a link. And with that, Tom, I'm going to hand it to you or to David. I think we're done with the MyPF portion.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you very much, Bruce, and thank all of you, young folks, for presenting. That's great. We this is well, I just want to say I'm very, very impressed with the young folks, and it's inspiring for us as older people, for me anyway, to help lead, continue to be a long distance runner, so to speak, in peace and justice, and to also continue to help with the young folks, to have them and assist us, and we become their assistants in a way. And the concept I think Brady talked about of marathon relay was very very interesting one and dynamic, and I love that. With that, this is I just want to say a few words here about before finally closing. And again, I want to thank all of you very much for participating, deciding to be here today and participating. It's just a lot of discussion and learning going on, sharing, and that's wonderful. I want to thank Mary Lou and Pam for their skills, knowledge, experience, and the time they spent with us today. I want to thank the MYPF young folks again. V, although she wasn't here, she's done tremendous work today, ongoing. Una, Brady, and Sneha for sharing their social projects with us. Each of you is a beacon of hope in the world. I want to thank the co-directors at MYPF, folks, Janice, Bruce, Mary Lou, and each of you has shown has done a lot to make this a strong and enduring program over the nonviolence. Like Bruce said, it's very impressive that it's been the longest running training program in the United States. I want to thank each of the planners, each of you, Mary, John, Mary Lou, Mary Hanson, John Rep, Mary Lou. Yes, Mary Lou played double work, double duty. She was, of course, a trainer. She also was involved with, I think, each training planning group. Maybe one, or she wasn't, I can't remember. She was very active and had a lot of ideas and sharing. We very much appreciate what you did, Mary Lou, with us. Jean Beskin, as usual, was a stalwart of, I mean, this woman, we talked about the music you experienced before the 9 o'clock start. I swear, I think Jean had that, must have worked till 2 or 3 in the morning the day after we talked about that. And she put together all those arrangements, renditions, or whatever you call it, of We Shall Not Be Moved. And that's what we went with for that portion. It's wonderful. Thank you, Jean, and for the registration and all the help. And again, she was an active planner, ongoing every meeting. Regan, thank you for your land acknowledgement, regular work and planning. And Bruce, thank you. And although Bruce wasn't with us regularly on the planning, it was it was his idea to have this this particular workshop training. He and Mary Lou and Pam had gone, and many others had gone to the training Freedom Trainers workshop. And it was shortly after that he and I were talking by Zoom, and he came up with the idea of having Mary Lou and she came up with the idea of having Pam. And so this has been wonderful training. Thank you, Bruce. And I'm sure as heck I'm leaving some. John Rep, and thank you, and Maru and John Rigg and Jean Gant de la Strada. Thank you for all your work with the MYPF. Work with you and Regan both did a lot in terms of getting people in Olympia engaged. So thank all of you for that. And then I know I'm running long, but bear with me. And then again, a big thank you for all of you for being here, making this. Without you, the conference wouldn't have been a success. It wouldn't have been a conference. So I trust that you've experienced at least one major takeaway from this very rich training that you can work both individually and collectively in your activism work from here on. Because heaven knows we all got our work cut out for us. Particularly though, I think it's important to link together with other folks. And it gets, and also soon after this conference is over, you'll each be receiving an email response. And these are, of course, optional to complete, but I do hope that you would take the time to share what you liked, just thought so on, or even didn't like, or what improvements we could make, because we do look at these. So again, thank you for doing that. And after this, we're going to have a 5-minute break shortly for those who want to continue. It'll be a permanent break from the conference for those who need to go. But for those of you who want to continue with an informal discussion, excuse me, afterwards, feel free to do that. We've done this in the past. Remember, all of us are part of this ongoing movement, and we really want to, all of us, I'm sure, want to see it expand into all those steps of a movement, all that lead toward a change, so greater change. So thank you very much for being here.
David, you forgot one critical thank you.
Who's that?
A fellow named David Lambert. Thank you to David.
Thank you, Bruce.
I would just like to add my thanks. I would just like to add my thanks to Tom Hawthorne, who's been
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
With
Tom, how could
the text.
I'm very apologetic, Tom. I left you out, and without you. I remember past conferences when, oh my, I can just think of this recent spring assembly, and this is night and day difference in my view than that. So thank you very much. Tom spent a lot of time on this. He spent a lot of time. So
it was a pleasure.
Arkansas now.
Real pleasure.
So yeah, okay. Well, this is the end of the formal conference. So those of you who want to stay are very welcome.